Evening, Toshio Okada here. Tonight we're covering Mobile Suit Gundam Episode 11, Iserina Love's Remains. Last time I said it'd be 3 parts. My mistake, it's actually 6. This is part 2 of 6. Last time was part 1. Yes, we'll spend over 3 hours on a 23-minute episode. Laughs. And it's not just this one. Next, Episode 12, The Threat of Zeon, is also 6 parts, another 3 hours. Honestly, this is where my engine really kicks in. I finally get to say everything I want about Iserina, Love's Remains, and The Threat of Zeon, so please bear with me. Alright, let's dive in. VTR, ready? Okay. Gundam Lecture, Session 23, Iserina, Love's Remains Part 2. From Toshio Okada's Gundam Lecture, we'll cover everything after the 6-minute mark of Episode 11. Last time we spent 30 minutes just getting from the opening narration to about 6 minutes in. What's unusual here is how the viewpoint alternates between Zeon and the Federation, but the weight leans towards Zeon. Gundam was made as children's animation. The creators aimed at so-called high teens, but on the ground, including the director, they still built it so even grade schoolers could follow. So unlike many modern shows that freely humanize the villains, they're careful about how much of the enemy's side they portray. The priority is that kids watching don't lose the thread. Who's good, who's bad, and where to place their feelings. The balance is extremely deliberate. Even so, Episode 11 opens right on the Zabi family, with narration, the colony farthest from Earth. Home to the Zabi clan that rules the Principality of Zeon, we begin with their family affairs. On the surface, Degwin is sovereign, but real power sits with the eldest Gihren, then Kycilia, and below them Lieutenant General Dozle, who can't meddle in politics at all. The story starts as Dozle's battleship returns to Side 3, Zeon's homeland. After showing the Zabi family situation, we cut to Lieutenant Dorota, formerly under Garma Zabi, visiting Garma's lover, Iserina Eschenbach, to console her. But, instead of a fragile girl in tears, Iserina stares Dorota down, sizing him up. She declares, "I'll take revenge. I must at least strike back at the ones who killed Garma." Dorota balks. "We can't bring a woman onto a warship." Of course, in Gundam women do fight, so what he really means is, we can't take a civilian aboard, and he trails off. Before Garma's giant portrait, Iserina fixes on him. Lieutenant Dorota, her resolve is clear. That got us to the 6-minute mark, now for the rest. We finally cut away. White base roars across the sky with its familiar engine howl. Look at the sky color. It's deeper, a strong indigo compared to earlier episodes. That's because they're up in the stratosphere. So the clouds aren't cumulus like at ground level. They're long, thin streaks typical of that altitude. They're flying very high. There's a reason. Today's battle starts in the heavens, drops below the clouds, and ends near the ground, so they first linger on the deep blue stratosphere. White base cruises there, then suddenly shudders. Mirai. Severe turbulence. At that altitude, they've hit a nasty shear. Like airliners. Below around 2 kilometers it's steadier, but higher up you get sudden turbulence and shear. Same thing here. Cut to the bridge. Then Amuro and Ryu, working in the hangar. Huh? Air pocket? The deck lurches. Mirai announces, "We're in turbulence. It'll shake for a bit, but we're fine." They resume work. Ryu, "Figure it out?" Amuro, "Yeah, there's a safety lock. That's why it wouldn't switch to Javelin." At this point, the audience has no idea what they mean. Ryu, "Huh. You're more of an engineer, aren't you?" Amuro, "Am I?" Ryu, "So it can switch to Javelin too?" Amuro, "Sure, if..." Next cut. What Amuro's tinkering with is the beam saber. Those 2 rods on Gundam's back are beam sabers. He's adjusting the hilt unit. That hilt is supposed to switch from beam saber to beam javelin. But earlier, hitting the javelin switch didn't change modes. They opened it up and found a safety lock inside. Like a pistol safety. It blocked the changeover. Probably for factory shipping, so the thing on its back wouldn't suddenly shoot out. So it shipped locked. They'd missed that. Now they know why it wouldn't work. Still, viewers don't know what Javelin is yet. It'll click later in the episode. Planting cryptic lines now and paying them off later. Before Gundam, you almost never saw TV anime do that. I'm not saying Gundam invented everything, but it pioneered a lot that later felt obvious. So Amuro explains how the Javelin mode works. So what exactly is this Javelin? I wanted to show the scene where it shines, but animation is always moving. It's hard to see clearly. So look at something clearer. Clover's toy, Gundam combination set. It was around 4,000 yen back then. I bought this, and later the larger, deluxe combination set too. Now they're crazy expensive, practically unreachable. For this show, I wanted one badly, but even on Yahoo auctions, they're 80 minus 90,000 yen, so I passed. Key point: upper body, lower body, and a core fighter in the middle. They combine, hence, combination set. It even boasts rocket punch, Gundam punch. Yes, it fires fists. Back then, robot toys had rocket punch whether or not it existed in the show. But otherwise, the weapons matched the anime. I said around part 1 or 2, Yoshiyuki Tamino told the toy company, "We'll do serious human drama, so give us all your requirements up front and we'll include them." One request from Clover was, give Gundam a spear. Hence the giant Beam Javelin. That's the spear. As the box shows, the eye-catchers are Gundam itself, a big shield, and the spear. Gundam uses its shield a lot on screen. That's for realism, but also because the toy brief was, make the shield and spear prominent. So the Beam Javelin should have featured more, yet it doesn't appear at all until episode 11. My take: across the TV run, the Beam Javelin almost never shines. This episode is basically its one big moment. I call episode 11 the alibi. They promised the sponsor, so they had to show it. But in animation, the spear is a pain to use. They use it here, but having the beam saber rod suddenly extend and glow into a spear feels abrupt, so Tomino adds an in-world reason. Hence the scene explaining the safety lock that kept it from working until now. Truth is, the toy company was furious. That's the real reason. So the Beam Javelin finally shows up here. It's not that Tomino dislikes spears. He used them back in Zambot 3. But spears are awkward in robot battles because they're too strong. You've heard the phrase Kenjutsu Sanbaidan, right? Ikki Kajiwara popularized it in Karate Baka Ichidai. A swordsman is so advantaged that a karateka needs triple the rank to match him. Thanks to that, 3 ranks rule spread to all sorts of sayings, but in martial text it's actually Kenjutsu Sanbaidan. And it doesn't mean the swordsman is 3 times stronger. It means, against a spearman, swordsmen need 3-to-1 to be even, because the spear dominates. So it's not, Kenjutsu is triple, but bring 3 swords against 1 spear. That's how strong a spear is. From Japan's warring states to Rome's legionaries, infantry were taught first how powerful the spear is. They wore swords too, but mainly as backup for when the spear became useless at close quarters. Think of it like carrying a mechanical pencil even though you have a smartphone. The spear rules, because you can strike from 3 to 4 meters, then choke up and keep fighting as they close. But in robot animation, long spears just don't look good on screen. So everyone knew spears beat swords, yet they were rarely used. Tamino said, "We use spears in Zambot 3, so we'll use them here." But by episode 11 there'd been no good chance. So they finally debut it here. As I said, before production he promised sponsor Clover, "We'll honor all your requests." Earlier hits like Zambot 3 and Daitarn 3 made Sunrise confident. They initially pitched only fighters and battleships, and brought White Base as the warship design. But a Clover exec scowled. "A wooden horse like this won't sell." Tamino snapped. "Wooden horse, huh?" And Zeon ended up codenaming White Base the Trojan Horse, or so the Laserdisc box liner notes claim. Laughs. So originally they were trying for something closer to Macross, but the sponsors insisted, you must have robots, ideally 3. So Gundam morphed into what we know. A blessing in disguise. You never know what turns out lucky. Anyway, that explains why the Javelin hadn't worked. Saber and Javelin are the same unit. They lock the Javelin onto Gundam's back, and we cut back to the bridge. Something blips on radar. Marker. Bogies at 11 o'clock. 3-ship formation. Oscar. Laser range. Gauss. 3 Gaw carriers inbound. 3 massive Gaw attack carriers, flying aircraft carriers, are approaching. Iserina is aboard one of them, of course. The white base crew don't know that. They just remember how one Gaw pushed them to the limit. Now there are 3. Free segment ends here. About the Javelin. I said it only appears here. That was wrong. Thanks to the Nikoniko live comments for the correction. Right? It's used against the Gallop, and maybe in space against a warship, too. I'm fuzzy. I definitely recall the Gallop, though. Thanks. The safety lock explanation is handled brilliantly. In older robot anime, debuts like that were always new weapons, introduced by some professor with an info dump. Then you'd get a Mazinger Z-style exchange. Timid professor explains. Hot-blooded hero quips. Heh, got it. I'll use it. Gundam flips it. Ryu asks, figure it out? And Amuro answers, it's shipped with the safety engaged. That folds in character growth. How used they are to Gundam. Very cool writing. It also implies the Beam Javelin is an expert mode feature, disabled by default from the factory. Even now it's an astonishing show.